Well, hello again, friends, and welcome back to Roll Call and to the usual audience. You know how much you fire me up about being here. And to all those of you who are new this week, welcome. This is the forum where we dig deeper into the principles that our team has introduced to you by way of our keynotes, our breakout sessions, our workshops, the Top Gun Teamwork Program. And this week's reflection is an important one for all of us. This week, we're going to talk about the fact that we do indeed buy risk by not being intentional about how we go about to achieve mission success. We buy risk because we don't plan to win. And I'll begin, as I often do, with a story from my background. And there's one, it's kind of funny, also semi almost tragic. From when I was doing my first master's program in Montgomery, Alabama, and the physical fitness test that I had to take while I was there. So, little background in the Air Force, every year you've got to take a physical fitness test. You got to pass this test every year in order to continue to do your job. If you don't pass the physical fitness test, it leads you down a path towards being kicked out of the Air Force. Not a good thing. We've got to be fit to do the work that we do. And so it just makes sense. And there's all kinds of different components to this: push ups, sit ups, I forget what else. And then it ends with a run. Good. And a little bit more background on me. I hate to run. A lot of different reasons. Never found that it really felt very good. And so basically for me, the run was a once a year thing. All right. And the way that I used to pass the physical fitness tests, a little insight into my game plan, I would go monitor who I'm taking this thing with, figure out who the folks who were most in shape were, and then use them as my pacing system. I'd find the fastest people there, and I just try to keep up with them as best I could, and then they would usually drag me along to the finish line, and it was a mission success. Worked like a champ ever since the Air Force Academy. Good. And so my strategy was a sound one right up until it wasn't. And when I got to the Air Command and Staff College at Maxwell Air Force Base, somebody came up to me one day and said, "Hey, Cujo, you're about to expire for your physical fitness test. Like, you need to take it tomorrow or the next day. Otherwise, a bunch of bad things happen." I'm like, "Oh no. Oh no, that's not good." And the only solution was to come in either the next day or the day after. I can't remember which it was. It was like pretty short turn though, really early before class, and to take the test solo. And I'm like, "Oh no." Oh no, this is really bad. I will have nobody to pace me. So I showed up early. I did have some adrenaline going. The guy that's monitoring me goes, "All right, you did the push-ups and the sit-ups and whatever else. Now it's time for the run, Cujo. You ready?" And I'm like, "I guess." And he goes, "Hey, go." He starts his timer. And I've got to run around this track 6 times. So I go zipping along, do my thing, looking like Tom Cruise, making my way around the track the first time. And as I'm coming up close to him, and as he's sitting there with the timer, he goes, "Hey, Cujo, you're like on an Olympic pace." And I think to myself, he must be kidding with me because I'm no Olympian. I hate running. And so I actually speed up. All right. So now I'm really in Tom Cruise mode, and I'm zipping along, doing my thing. And I'm coming around the second curve there. And he goes, "No kidding, Cujo. You're setting an Olympic record right now." And as I'm looking at him, wondering why he's still being so sarcastic to me, my lungs start to burn. Like, it was almost instantaneous. My lungs started to burn, and I felt like I was going to die. And that's when I realized he wasn't kidding. I was setting an Olympic record, and I'm no Olympian. And oh, now we got a problem because I've got four more of these things that I've got to get through. And I will substantially slow down from that point on, but I know that I've got to make this thing, otherwise bad things happen. And so I eventually make it to the finish line, and I just collapse. And I think, yeah, no, actually I know it was my best time ever. Not because of the last four laps, but because of the first two. But what I also know is, I mean, I probably came close to, just burning myself out somewhere on this whole thing. And if he hadn't said anything, I would have died. Good. So it's kind of a funny story, right? But what we have to acknowledge here is that I went into this thing that actually was a semi high stakes affair. I mean, I guess if you fail it, you probably get a chance to redo it or something. I don't know, but it doesn't reflect. It doesn't reflect well on you when you fail a test like this. And we're supposed to be fit. We're supposed to be on top of things, and so failing it is not good. And I could have failed it that day because I didn't have a plan. I had zero plan. In fact, it didn't even occur to me to plan for this thing. I was just lamenting the fact that I had to take it. In fact, I was kind of bummed. So I spent most of my time being bummed, and then I came in with a bunch of adrenaline, and off we went, literally to the races. Not good, not good, and not what we teach here. We talk about the imperative of having a plan. And what you and I need to recognize is when we go into something cold, we can achieve mission success. Oh, yeah, there's no doubt. But is it the best way to do so? Absolutely not. And yet we tell ourselves all the time, oh, there's no time to plan, or people know what they need to do and they're just going to do it. Doesn't quite work that way. And it really doesn't work that way when it comes to accountability. Like, if we don't set expectations and equip people by way of a plan to be able to meet or exceed them, really, we can't be frustrated if they don't. And we have to look at ourselves and acknowledge that we didn't set any of this up to succeed. And that's a leadership deficiency, not an issue with our teammate. So when we don't plan, we absorb a ton of risk. And I do think that oftentimes that's the status quo. And yet, because we're able to on the fly adjust, because somehow the body rises to the occasion, does some Olympic record setting sprints, and then throttles back, we get there, we say to ourselves, well, it's working, right? But what a dysfunctional way to achieve success. I mean, across the finish line, I will acknowledge. But who knows? Who knows how much more my body could have taken? And was that the right way to go about taking these tests in the future? Of course not. In fact, I will have, and if memory serves, my very last ever physical fitness test in the United States Air Force before I got cancer was done at Morón Air Base in Spain. And it was another one of these things where I wasn't with my tribe, I wasn't with the squadron any longer. I was helping set up a special purpose Marine Corps unit, and we were doing a bunch of stuff. And it was another one of those where I have to take the physical fitness test while I'm there. I remembered, though, what happened back in Montgomery. I mapped the whole thing out, used a watch, figured out what my pacing needed to be to finish this thing at a good pace. I took a look at the weather forecast, found out what was going to happen with the winds, figured out where it was that I could kind of cruise a little bit and where I was going to have to really amp it up because of the headwinds. I mean, I went into that thing with a plan, a strategy. It worked, and I felt confident all the way through. I came into thing with a degree of confidence that we would end up okay, and it actually resulted that way. I changed behaviors from the first time I actually learned. And one of the things that we need to reconcile as we go about the business of doing whatever it is we do here is, though that we can achieve mission success dysfunctionally, a much better way to do it is to do so functionally. A much better way to do it is to go about planning. And that's something that, in my experience, I've found we don't do organically in a business setting. We don't plan tactically, and it costs us. We're buying risk when we go about business that way, and it costs us. The great news for us, though, is that it's an easy fix. And if you've been through one of our workshops, we always end by giving you a slide with the F-15 Eagle planning methodology. And while we really only emphasize the first step of that methodology, that is setting expectations, creating the yardstick against which we're going to measure, teeing ourselves up with the ability to then create a plan that's going to allow us to meet or exceed those expectations. The rest of the stuff that's in there is also gold. And so maybe we set aside some time this weekend to go back into that slide deck that's sitting somewhere in our inbox, go to the Eagle planning slide and start looking at that, thinking about it, trying to figure out what Cujo meant by putting that thing together, and then figuring out how it is that we're going to bring that to life in the work that we do next week. And that's an outstanding place to start. And if you want some help figuring out what those different components are, give us a ring. We spend a lot of our time teaching people how to bring the Eagle planning process to life in their work. In all cases, know that we need to come in the next week trying to mitigate risk, trying to lower the degree of risk that we're carrying forward, trying to equip our teammates with the ability to rise to the occasion and win with us. That's the point of this conversation. And know that all of us here at Team VMAX Group are always rooting for you as you take action, bold action on the things that we're talking about. And from my standpoint, I look forward to seeing you again next Friday.